What's interesting here is that Jonathan Brown is criticizing me for not doing the work and not knowing Arabic and being ignorant, and with this kind of condescending comment. Others were quick to correct him on his supposed mastery of Arabic. But I think it's worth acknowledging, or it's worth investigating. What is the scholarly credentials of Jonathan Brown? What gives him the right? What puts him in a position to be able to do this kind of ijtihad or this qiyas and propose these kinds of views, telling what Muslims should do? Muslims should advocate and affirm many LGBT rights. On what basis does he have a right to be putting out these views, being a director of a religious research institute? What is his level of knowledge? If you watched the recent podcast I did with Dili Hussein of 5 Pillars, Dili grilled me and he asked me, Daniel, why are you qualified to call out and to criticize these scholars? But I answered to sum it up, that, look, I'm a student of knowledge. I don't claim to be a scholar. I don't claim to have any kind of high credentials. But you don't need credentials to point out something that is clear batil. You don't need those kinds of credentials or years of study when someone tells you something that is clear-cut, qat'i, against the Quran, the clear meaning of the Quran. You don't need to have years of study of Islam as a professional scholar to be able to say, hey, this is wrong, or hey, there's something that is problematic, very problematic with this, in that it contradicts the Quran. It's contradicting Islam. That was my response, and I didn't claim to have any kind of special credential. I do know Arabic. I do know how to read and write and speak Arabic, but you have someone like Jonathan Brown who is condescending, and he is positioning himself, and others have positioned him as this kind of scholar. And us lay Muslims, we couldn't even dream to criticize. We couldn't even dream to critique anything that this scholar, this alim, has written or put out. So has anyone asked, what are Jonathan Brown's credentials, his scholarly credentials that puts him in this kind of position? So let's hear it from Jonathan Brown himself in an interview that he gave recently on a podcast. So then going back to what we sort of touched on at the very, very, very beginning, you're in Cairo in 2006 because you're doing CASA at the time? It was like your second stint?
Yeah, CASA too. I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. This was a wonderful opportunity.
We've mentioned CASA on the show before when Dr. Jackson was on. Yeah. That's the Center for Arabic Studies Abroad. I believe it's a year long.
Yeah. So I did CASA when I applied. So in college at Georgetown, I applied to CASA, and I had at that time exactly 2 Arabic grades on my transcripts. I mean, I was in the middle of Arabic 2, and I had skipped the second semester of Arabic 1. So I had 0. I mean, I almost no Arabic when I went to college. I don't know. After that, they never would have let me in. I mean, that was before 9/11, so it was like the last year before 9/11. And there, after that, it got much more competitive, but no one would have let me in. And anyway, so I got in, and I went to Cairo from June of 2000 to June of 2001. And because, I mean, it was a great situation because I had, with languages, I think it's always better to be in over your head, but I was way over my head. So I had to really learn fast and learn a lot. And that year gave me the skills I needed to really be able to do the things I wanted as a scholar.
So did you catch that? I mean, he says that he had 2 grades before going to Egypt for a year, and then a year of study, and he had all he needed to do the kinds of things he wanted to do as a scholar. Let's continue. Let's see what else he says.
Right. Basically a kind of dissertation fellowship where you go and they pay for you to do tutorials with scholars, like one-on-one tutorials. So I did 3 tutorials, 3 or 2, I can't remember. I don't remember now. I think 2 tutorials.
And time in Yemen, is that correct? I mean,
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to make any I don't want to make any claims. So when you read my bio, to kind of a general audience, they wouldn't infer anything from that. I don't want to, but a Muslim audience would infer from that. I don't want to make any claims that are not true, or even imply anything that's not true. So my Islamic education, which is not very strong. I mean, it's limited, right? I mean, I learned Arabic. I did study a book called Shadur al-Dahab in Grammar by Ibn Hisham with Muhammad Hamasa. I studied a book of Fiqh al-Lugha with Ali Juma, and I studied a book of Usul al-Fiqh, legal theory or legal epistemology with a scholar named Sayyid Shaltut in Azhar.
Yes.
I studied about half of a book of Hanbali law with a scholar named Musa Ferber in Cairo.
Right.
I studied a lot of Ulum al-Lugha with Muhammad Hamasa, and I studied a lot of hadith with Osama Sayyid Mahmoud. So that was really, I went to other places, like I spent a few months, I think maybe a month and a half in Yemen in 2007. But that was really, and I met a lot of scholars, but I didn't do any extended study, and I was mostly doing manuscript research there. So every other place I've been, I've met scholars and I've benefited from them, and spent maybe a few days with them. But I would not claim to have had any extensive study after that year, 2006. I mean, and I have the ijazahs to teach some basic things, but not very high level stuff.
Half a book of fiqh, a lot of lugha, some usul al-fiqh. That's his extent of study. I mean, someone who actually has studied Islamically and with teachers, you be the judge. Is this a high-level scholar who is going to introduce new positions, is going to do ijtihad? Someone who hasn't even gone through a full text of fiqh, basic Hanbali fiqh? I mean, how can you even claim to talk about any issue within Islamic ethics when you haven't, and not only just talk about it, you're doing qiyas, you are doing this kind of ijtihad that you claim, grappling with the tough issues that the community is facing ethically, and you haven't even completed a book of fiqh. So anyone who is a scholar watching this, any talibul ilm, you judge. Are you more knowledgeable than Jonathan Brown? Have you studied more in 1 year or 1 semester in your programs than Jonathan Brown? So why is he in this position lecturing Muslims about what rights we should support, the salvation of non-Muslims? He has a whole paper on Yaqeen Institute on the salvation of kuffar and mushrikeen, which we're going to cover inshallah. He hasn't even studied aqidah. Where was the aqidah text? Where was the kalam text? But he is in this position writing on these issues, writing about hudud, writing about ridda, writing about how the hudud, we shouldn't revive them in this day and age, as he argues in his article for Yaqeen on apostasy. The hudud are mostly symbolic, they're scare tactics. He hasn't even gone through one work of fiqh, one work of aqidah. So what puts him in a position to be opining on these things? And why would any respectable alim who recognizes this and understands this, why would anyone share or consider him in such regard? I mean, these are just questions that I'm asking, and many others should be asking these questions as well.